Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a production of the Prancing Pony Podcast. I'm the Man of the West, and it's time to wrap up Week 83 with Silmarillion Saturday. Now, these Saturdays are our chance to revisit the history and legends of the Elder Days, whether from the Silmarillion, unfinished tales, or more. Let's go ahead and get back into the music that created the very fabric of the universe, the Ainulindalë. Then Ilúvatar arose, and the Ainur perceived that he smiled. And he lifted up his left hand, and a new theme began amid the storm, like and yet unlike to the former theme. And it gathered power and had new beauty. But the discord of Melkor rose up in uproar and contended with it. And again there was a war of sound more violent than before, until many of the Ainur were dismayed and sang no longer, and Melkor had the mastery. Then again Ilúvatar arose, and the Ainur perceived that his countenance was stern. And he lifted up his right hand, and behold, a third theme grew amid the confusion, and it was unlike the others. For it seemed at first soft and sweet, a mere rippling of gentle sounds and delicate melodies. But it could not be quenched, and it took to itself power and profundity. And it seemed at last that there were two musics progressing at one time before the seat of Ilúvatar, and they were utterly at variance. The one was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow, from which its beauty chiefly came. The other had now achieved a unity of its own, but it was loud and vain and endlessly repeated, and it had little harmony, but rather a clamorous unison, as of many trumpets braying upon a few notes. And it essayed to drown the other music by the violence of its voice. But it seemed that its most triumphant notes were taken by the other and woven into its own solemn pattern. In the midst of this strife, whereat the halls of Ilúvatar shook, and a tremor ran out into the silences yet unmoved, Ilúvatar arose a third time, and his face was terrible to behold. Then he raised up both his hands, and in one chord, deeper than the abyss, higher than the firmament, piercing as the light of the eye of Ilúvatar, the music ceased. Then Ilúvatar spoke, and he said, "Mighty are the Ainur, and mightiest among them is Melkor. But that he may know, and all the Ainur, that I am Ilúvatar, those things that ye have sung, I will show them forth, that ye may see what ye have done. And thou, Melkor, shall see that no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in the devising of things more wonderful, which he himself hath not imagined." Then the Ainur were afraid, and they did not yet comprehend the words that were said to them. And Melkor was filled with shame, of which came secret anger. But Ilúvatar arose in splendor, and he went forth from the fair regions that he had made for the Ainur, and the Ainur followed him. But when they were come into the void, Ilúvatar said to them, "Behold your music." And he showed to them a vision, giving to them sight where before was only hearing. And they saw a new world made visible before them, and it was globed amid the void, and it was sustained therein, but was not of it. And as they looked and wondered, this world began to unfold its history. And it seemed to them that it lived and grew. And when the Ainur had gazed for a while and were silent, Ilúvatar said again, "Behold your music. This is your minstrelsy, and each of you shall find contained herein, amid the design that I set before you, all those things which it may seem that he himself devised or added. And thou, Melkor, wilt discover all the secret thoughts of thy mind, and wilt perceive that they are but a part of the whole, and tributary to its glory." Man, Doesn't get much better than that, does it? I mean, just some fantastic language in there. Now, last week we got to hear the first theme, and it was initially perfect. Quite literally, if you remember, in the music there were no flaws, right up until Melkor rebelled. And it's into the aftermath of that initial rebellion that we begin today's reading and watch as first, Ilúvatar smiles and lifts up his left hand. Then we get the second theme, more rebellion, and we get him with a stern face, lifting up his right hand. Then we get rebellion, and his face was terrible to behold. I can't do that. And he lifts both hands. Now let's talk a bit about those themes. We are told later that Manwe is the chief instrument of the second theme. We find out that on the Valaquenta, I believe. As for the third theme, we're not told directly, but there's a line in here that gives us a clue. The theme from Ilúvatar, was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow, and blended with an immeasurable sorrow, from which its beauty chiefly came. Now, given what we know about Nienna, perhaps my favorite of the Valier, the queens of the Valar, even though she's never exactly the life of the party, it seems to me she may be the chief instrument here. And that's interesting because, as we'll read next week, the third theme is where the elves and men come in. Not that she had anything to do with them or any of the Ainur, because we'll read also that none of the Ainur had part in their making. But pity and sorrow play such a huge role in the lives of elves and men, it sure fits with the idea of Nienna being the chief instrument of the third theme. Next up, we get the concept of SPBMI, and here we actually get the words, shall prove but mine instrument. Now, while he's almost never mentioned outside of the Ainulindalë, the hand of Ilúvatar is seen at work throughout Tolkien's Legendarium, and we see here how that's going to be accomplished. It's a level of theological sovereignty that certainly fits within Tolkien's worldview and serves to explain how even evil, which in his world is merely a twisting of the good and not a thing of its own, will end up, as Ilúvatar says later, but a part of the whole and tributary to its glory. I also think we get a good glimpse of how evil reacts to opportunities to change. Melkor, instead of experiencing, let's say, regret and shame leading to repentance, as we see demonstrated when Ilúvatar confronts Aule after his creation of the dwarves, for example, we read that Melkor instead was filled with shame of which came secret anger. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, Melkor. And folks, that does it for this week's Silmarillion Saturday. Thank you for joining me. Please come back next week as the Valar turn music into history, and we learn about the children of Ilúvatar. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show. Podcast listeners, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your apps. And for those on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the like button. And be sure you're all following @PrancingPonyPod on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.